We are talking fishing rods, and we are talking patterns from the Bassmaster Classic, and a bunch more coming up on this edition of Tackle Shop Live. What's up, everybody? WB Jones, what do you say, pal? Thanks a lot for coming in, man. That was great. Great to have you here. Thanks, pal. Appreciate that. Todd Langle, Scott Luckoff, what do you say, guys? Michelle Renee, what's up, man? Mark, how you doing? Andy Garrett, what's up, Andy? David Schottelmeyer, how are you, David? Man, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Mike Hayer, how you doing? As always, bud. Michael McCabe, what do you say? Kevin Carpenter, how are you? Chuck Reif, what's up, Chuck? How are you, man? Philip Good, how you doing? Andre, how you doing, Andre? Thanks for stopping in again. Stan Horn. Mike Barr, how are you, Mike? Man, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. Tackle Shop Live. I'm Mike Acord. This is George Acord. And back behind the camera is cameraman Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Doing good.
That's good, man. Good seeing you guys. Glad everybody's stopping in tonight for the show. We got a really good show for you. One of the big questions we always get is man, what rod do you use for what? You know, what pattern, what baits, how do you, some guys have 10, 12 rods. Other guys only have 3, 4, 5 rods. So we're going to talk some patterns from the Classic, and we're going to add in there what rods go with those types of patterns. And then we're going to kind of expand out on the rods a little bit to say it can also throw this and also throw that. So you guys can kind of dial your rods in for the right specific technique that you're doing, because it's so important to have the right tool for the right job. But there's a lot of rods that cross over, and we're going to talk about that tonight and get deep into fishing rods. So that's something we really want to talk about. I got a few announcements here for everybody. Cabin Fever. Our Cabin Fever sale is coming up March 18th and 19th in the store here at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle headquarters here in Columbia, Pennsylvania. That's March the 17th or 18th and 19th. That's next weekend. And we got a huge show for you guys coming to the shop. We got seminar speakers going on for both of those days. We got Corbin Gottwalk going to be doing a seminar for us this year at Cabin Fever. And he's going to be talking smallmouth and smallmouth techniques. So that's going to be fun and interesting. And then we're going to mix it up a little bit. We got Jerry Surson, Captain Jerry Surson. He's going to be doing a snakehead seminar. Snakehead fishing around here has been blowing up, Nick, as you know, George. I mean, it's a huge thing.
They're taking over.
They're taking over. So everybody's really kind of targeting these things. And Jerry has been on the leading edge of this, for the Chesapeake Bay and the tributaries and stuff that we're fishing. He's been just lighting them up for the last couple of years. He's got some great different techniques that a lot of guys aren't doing, but he is whacking them. So you guys can sit in on that and listen to him talk about snakehead fishing. And then we're going to go one step more. We're going to go and we're going to talk muskie with Rocky Dronberg. Rocky is a river muskie fisherman, and he is absolutely incredible. He catches a ton of muskies.
He does.
He fishes the upper Potomac River and also the Susquehanna River. And this guy, very, very interesting, catches them big time. He's going to be here doing seminars on both days also.
Who's our headliner? And
then our headliner, courtesy of Shimano, which the whole Cabin Fever sale is sponsored by Shimano. So they do a lot of stuff for the show. We're going to have from Shimano, Patrick Lathan's going to be here. And I think we're going to have a maybe a showing from our main man,
CB Outwife.
Yeah, Chris Beeler's going to be here, hopefully, and we'll be able to talk to him. He's our Northeast sales manager, really great guy. It's been a long time since we saw him, so hopefully he can get here. But we have Alex Davis, the spinnerbait kid from Texas, is going to be
no, Alabama.
Or Alabama, I'm sorry.
Lake Gunnersville.
Yep. Lake Gunnersville. He's going to be here, and he's going to be giving seminars both days on.
He's also a Major League Fishing Open circuit pro.
Yeah.
He's been touring on that circuit since it was FLW.
Yeah, so we got him coming, and you're going to be able to pick his brain. He's a heck of a stick. I guess he's going to be talking something about spinnerbaits, huh?
Well,
he got the nickname Spinnerbait Kid. So
Spinnerbait Kid Guide Service. That's what his guide service is called.
So hopefully,
well, I think he's gonna drop some serious knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, he tours the country.
Yeah.
You know, he's a touring pro, guide service guy, you know, running a guide service. And when you're spending that kind of time on the water,
yeah, you got some knowledge.
And that's how you pay your bills.
You got some knowledge.
We need to know that.
The times of the seminars are going to be posted either tomorrow or Saturday. I just shot the email over to our guy, so you're going to see those on our website for both of those days. You know, the time slots for each of those guys. We're going to flip flop on both days. We're going to have a list of them on Friday, and then we're going to flip flop them for Saturday. So depending on times that you guys can get here, you can stop and see that. That's going to be posted on sfttackle.com website. There's a banner already up on the sale. You can click on that. It'll take you right to the seminars, and that's going to be posted either tomorrow or Saturday. So look for that coming, and you're probably going to get an email too on that. So
you know what else is going to be interesting, Mike?
What's that?
You know, last week we talked about how the Bassmasters Classic outdoor show has become like a public ICAST show.
Yeah.
And a lot of the factories and companies do specific mid-season releases around that show.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a ton of those releases.
Yep.
That are in-house now.
Yep.
And will be making their debut.
Yeah, here
at Cabin Fever.
Yep.
You know, we've been processing the freight, building the web pages, and we're going to have all that ready to go.
Yep. And then for you guys that can't make it, because there's a lot of guys that watch this show that can't drive all the way here to the shop. We're going to have an online sale for you guys March the 20th through 22nd. That's a Sunday through Tuesday, I believe. And you guys are going to be able to take advantage of some great sale prices. This is our biggest sale event of the year. So you guys are coming to the store here. You're going to see some really, really stellar sale items on sale. There's going to be just a great selection of stuff that we're posting up for sale. We got a lot of tackle to sell, and we're going to sell it hard, and we're going to sell it at good prices, Nick. This is the time to stock up.
And you guys are loaded.
We're loaded.
I mean, holy smokes. I get here in the back, you got boxes and boxes and boxes. I told George, I said, wow, you guys are going to be unpacking until the show starts.
We really are. We a lot of that stuff's back stock, so we got lots of tackle here to sell. And we're going to make a big bang on Cabin Fever sale this year. So you definitely want to get here. You definitely want to come to this one. This is going to be a great sale as always. And we have the Bass Bus, so we'll be able to do off-site parking as always. And you guys are going to be taken care of with that. Don't forget to stop by our social media sites, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Yep. Stop in all those places and check us out.
We're going to talk about this too.
Yeah. We got some other stuff to talk about tonight. So make sure you guys go to our social media and like it and share it with your friends so that everybody's tuned in and knows exactly what's going on here at the store. That is the best way for you guys to check it out. Get some neat little videos that we shoot with Nick and Caitlin. She's always making me do videos. So I know some of them are goofy, but we have fun doing them. So yeah, definitely do that. Stephen Daniel, or I'm telling Patrick to bring all his stuff, and hopefully we can sell all his stuff too. So hopefully he'll have a Corrado DC, but that's very elusive. Nick.
I would recommend getting here real early.
Yeah,
because we will have some Corrado DC. Just I heard that.
You heard that.
I heard that.
Yeah. So definitely.
You know what else I heard? Speaking of Shimano, we're gonna have all of the new hard baits.
Oh, yeah.
The Macbeths.
Yep.
The World Poppers.
Oh, man.
The World Divers.
And we got another batch of world minnows in too, I saw.
We did.
So we're going to have some of those for you guys.
We're also going to have a pile of Vanfords, including 3000s. That's right.
Scott Kalen, how you doing, buddy? Fresh maple syrup. I'm a maple syrup junkie, dude. I love me some maple syrup, so that'd be great. Thanks, buddy. Stephen Daniels, how you doing?
Get the pancake batter ready.
Twitter, I don't know why we don't do Twitter. I can't hardly keep up with the ones we do. So,
you know what, George? You were talking about those Shimano baits, right?
Yeah.
And I'm down at the Classic, and I'm walking around, and you're looking. Like you said, it's like the iCast before the iCast.
Yeah, it's like the mini iCast.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Shimano, and I'm like, ooh, I like what I see. And now that you just announced that,
oh yeah,
we're gonna be getting them.
Oh, they're on wheels right now, heading this way.
Exciting.
Wheels up, Nick.
Exciting.
Wheels up.
Hey, real quick, Mike, thank you for bringing up the social media stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, don't be afraid to comment down below there. If you have an idea of something you want to see or something you want answered, just put it down below and we'll make a video up of it and get it out to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We can.
Go Gomez, how you doing? He's not going to be able to make it. He's got his knees done. Yeah, Go. We're going to miss you. He's always a good guy to be here.
Yeah, that's no good. That's no good.
For you local anglers that are watching, the Borderline Bass Anglers is having their open buddy tournament over in Lake Marburg on March the 26th. And on their application, it said that they weren't going to allow the A-rig.
No A-rig?
But it was a misprint.
Typo?
Typo.
You know, and that's easy to do.
It was a typo. They used some rules from another time, and it was a typo. So
that's one of them. That's one of them. I don't feel like typing this out, so I'm going to do a giant copy and paste.
Yeah, I had some guys telling me that man, they're having a tournament over there and they're not going to allow the A-rig. What's wrong with them guys? And the word got out. So I found out what was going on there, and they told me to go ahead and make those changes. And so I made those changes on there, and you guys can do that. You guys can go over there, throw your A-rig, and you're going to be in good shape for that at that tournament. And that's always a good tournament. It's a good kickoff tournament of the year. So make sure you do that. So Ben the Buck Hunter's here. How you doing, buddy? What's going on?
He'll probably go over and fish.
Yeah, he's going to throw that A-rig. I know that. I know he's going to. So, yep, this is Tackle Shop Live. We are going to go and start talking about some fishing rods, and we're going to do that right now. So, George, I guess we just finished up with the Bassmasters Classic, and we were trying to figure out how to incorporate talking about fishing rods. And you come up with a nice idea that we're going to talk about some of the techniques that they used in the classic and what guys were throwing. And then we're going to bring the rods in and say, this is the kind of rods you want to do to throw that. And then we're going to expand out on that. So what was that classic was great. I don't know if everybody watched that classic, but my God, that was so exciting all the way up to the end. It was super close, 2 ounce difference between first and second. And really, the top 10, anybody could have won that thing. It was really exciting. We watched every minute over here at the shop. It was a really fun ride. We had all kinds of bets going on, and I lost every single one of them. But a lot of our guys lost too. So, but we had Skeeter Steve,
pick
the winner.
He did.
he picks the winner, and he got real close with the weight.
He went Jason Christie on
He
us.
went Jason Christie on us, and he cleaned us all out, took all of our money. And man,
I got a text
that was
from
exciting.
him like 35 seconds after the weigh-in was over on Sunday.
Yeah.
Telling me how pay up, sucker.
Yeah. Well, Saturday we have to pay up on Steve. We're going to take him for wings, a couple of beers, and some cigars. And he has a free ride for the whole night. We have to pay for everything. And so Skeeter Steve won that one.
Yeah, he did.
He won the SFT. And I don't know who won the Open.
I'm pretty sure JT won the Open.
Really?
Yeah, he had he did win because he had Christie.
Oh, yeah.
So he won.
Oh, he won it.
That was cash.
Yep.
How much?
I'll have to do the math on that one.
Oh,
pretty close to 200
must
bucks.
be a lot.
Yeah.
It was pretty close to $200.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
He did good. He did real good, but the guys were close. I mean, Corbin had new and could have went either way, but
yeah, that was fun.
Pulled it out.
It was fun. I'm a donator. I always am.
Yeah, well, it was a good time.
Yep.
Having a little action in the game made it all the sweeter.
Yep.
So, well, speaking of the Classic, I mean, this was a textbook. We can learn so much. I mean, it was pre-spawn and then a warming trend and fish moving up and fish still, staging and fish that were, gorging on bait. And you could see a lot of the competitors would start their mornings fishing deep fish that were attacking schools of herring. That was like the morning routine, get into a little creek channel that falls back into an arm and intersect a big wad of herring that are cruising around there. And then, that's like the Pied Piper just pulling all these fish in. And these guys were dialed in on that bite on forward-facing sonar, 100% game changer. And the techniques that they used were like techniques that were pioneered before forward-facing, but are now considered forward-facing techniques, like a Demiki rig. Last week, we talked about underspins, the underspin played.
Mm-hmm.
Even a little drop shot mixed in there.
Yeah.
You'd have some guys bat and clean up on a drop shot. But one thing that really played well, even on the deep fish and particularly on the shallow fish, was the old wacky rig.
Yeah.
And they were wacky rigging Yum Dingers. They were wacky rigging Sankos. I even saw where Chris Johnson was wacky rigging the Daiwa Nico Fat, which is basically a Yamamoto product.
Yeah.
So pick your favorite wacky worm. Now, for the deeper fish, a lot of the competitors were using a 32nd to a 16th ounce nail weight on their wacky rig. And a couple things that come into play there. If you notice, for those of you who are not like really into wacky rigging, the hook placement. One thing we always talk about here, you're not wacky rigging in the dead center of the worm. You're wacky rigging a little offset. So there's like a little worm collar molded into these worms. So you're going to wacky rig kind of offset there. You're going to put your little nail weight in the head, and it was a spinning rod.
Yeah.
Most competitors were, if not all, were using a spinning rod, even on the deep fish.
Yeah.
With the wacky. And the hooks varied from personal preference. There was a couple of top competitors that were fishing the Gamakatsu split shot drop shot hook, which is kind of like, I don't want to say it's a standard staple drop shot hook, but when drop shotting got big, it got big. And, they call it the split shot drop shot hook. They were using size 1 and 1.0. And then, of course, you saw a lot of competitors who have pretty much changed their wacky rigging to the Nico style hook. You saw Scott Martin was fishing, a trocar, basically a little Nico, little short shank Nico style wacky hook. This is a Mustad Titan X. Swindell was fishing the VMC weedless Nico hook, and using various O-rings and VMC crossover rings. But the deal was, see those fish on your forward, launch that thing out there, a little extra weight to get it down to them. And that worked extremely well.
Yep.
Stetson Blaylock played that beautifully.
Yeah.
On those deeper fish. And the kind of rod that they were using for that, Mike, well, I mean, basically your choice, 6.8 to 7.2.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them were going a little longer.
Yeah. I mean,
it's kind of like your standard rod, right?
Yeah. I mean, for wacky rigging, we like the 7-1, medium heavy, spinning rod. It gets the hook done, set properly. And it's a rod that you're going to use for a lot of different things, but it's the wacky rigging rod. It's you want a good quality, high sensitivity rod that you can throw out there, and feel everything with, and then also, set the hook and fight the fish. So this is a 7-1. This is one that me and George carry a lot. It's an 853. It's a medium heavy spinning rod that we use for wacky rigging. We use for for the guys,
shaky.
For the guys who want to multitask with that rod, which we do. You're going to shaky head fish with that thing. You're going to throw small little finesse jigs, like little small finesse jigs. That's a great little small finesse jig rod.
Well, I think one of the most popular techniques that we're using on those styles of rods is a ball head boot foot swim bait.
Yeah.
Anywhere from a little 2.8 to a 4-inch.
Sure.
4.5-inch.
Sure. That's a rod that's so versatile. You can do so much with. That's one of those rods that you really got to have in your arsenal to really cover the stuff that you can't really do well on a bait casting, and then also handle some little lighter line. A lot of those guys were fishing braid to fluorocarbon leader. It's a great rod for that. You could put 15-pound braid on there,
of them,
and then change your leader for whatever type of fishing. So those guys were open water fishing, so they didn't have to go too much with a real heavy leader. And they would get more bites on a little lighter line. But if you were fishing docks, you might go to a 12-pound test leader on that same rod, and you could wacky rig docks. You could shaky head rig docks. You could throw a lot of stuff around docks with that rod. It's just a really good all around rod to have in your arsenal. So, and then you pair it with a 3,000 or a 2,500 reel, and get yourself a good drag. And it doesn't matter what comes along, you can do it. In this instance, it was open water, but say you were fishing some grass and you wanted to throw a wacky rig in some grass pockets, you got the power in that rod to be able to get it out of the cover and get those fish out of the cover. If you're fishing a dock and you set the hook, you could power that fish out around the dock pylons, and you can control the fish a lot better. So that medium heavy is really a stick that you really, really got to have in your arsenal. So that would be one that you would definitely want to make sure. And it's just a very versatile rod, like me and George are saying here. I even know guys that throw, a bigger tube, the big 3.5-inch tubes, with a weed guard on the jig head or not. But it's a good stick for that also.
Good. Yeah. I mean, the medium heavy plays for a lot of these great shaky head rod. As we said, the wacky.
Yeah.
Getting into some cover.
Yeah. And if you're Greg DePalma, you drop shot with it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Greg.
Well, and it's and that's one of your standard rods in your system. And And I would even go so far as to say that you could do most of that stuff also with like an extra fast medium.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like a hybrid. You know, an extra fast medium is going to give you a little more backbone than a straight like fast medium, but it's going to give you that kind of medium tip.
Well, the nice thing about the medium, and I think you could get into what Jason Christie was doing. He was throwing at those fish in the morning on the forward facing sonar. He was throwing a little Swimbait style jig head.
Demiki.
Like is that what was Demiki?
Basically Demiki tight lining.
Yeah, he was tight lining with that, and it was a small bait. It was a little 3-inch, 3.5-inch bait.
What they're talking about on Demiki is basically anything from a 3.5, 4-inch. One of the competitors, and I don't recall who it was. I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but they fished the Z-Man scented jerk shed on a Z-Man finesse eye, 3/0 hook, 3/16 ounce. He also downsized a little bit to the 1/8 ounce with the 1/0 hook.
Yeah.
But basically, Demiki rig, you want a 90-degree eye.
Yep.
Okay. And, you cast out and you instead of following it down, what they mean by tight lining is normally you'd cast, and to get a vertical drop, you'd follow with your rod and let the bait vertically drop.
Yeah.
But tight lining is you cast and you tight line and you let the bait pendulum down through the fish, and that 90-degree eye, when it gets down, it's a vertical, horizontal presentation of the bait.
Yeah.
The beginnings of the Demiki rig were straight up and down underneath your boat, basically holding this above the fish, and that 90-degree eye kept your bait this way.
Yeah.
And of course, with the buoyancy of Elastec, this
stays
works
nice and
great.
straight.
And with the durability of it and
Yeah.
the keeper, you probably fish your whole tournament on one bait.
Yeah. So the medium action extra fast taper gives you that tip to be able to cast that real nice. And anything from that's a little bit bigger size all the way down to a little bit smaller 3-inch bait, that tip, you can cast it and get that nice cast out of it. You can hold the rod tip straight and let that tight line that back. And it's a little bit better rod for that technique also.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to make an argument, let's say that you were going to be a one spinning rod guy, I would probably lean towards the medium extra fast if I was a one spinner rod guy, because I can make the other techniques work. Keep in mind, when you're wacky, that's an exposed hook.
Yeah.
And with that braid to leader, that really boosts the versatility of that outfit.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of that stretch out. So, you could make that medium rod work very well. If you're a 2 spinning rod guy, then by all means, the medium and the medium heavy.
Yeah. And what I like about,
I just think that just goes together.
Yeah.
Like,
I think what I like about the medium
just goes together, man.
Yeah. What I like about the medium is I think it's a great drop shot rod.
Oh, absolutely.
I've always used that medium for drop shot, and I don't per se have, because I don't do a ton of drop shot in deep clear water, so I don't have a softer drop shot rod, but most of my drop shotting is a little bit shallower, a little bit stained water. I don't need to really worry about my line size and that kind of stuff. So that medium is a great drop shot rod. So it's a good rod. You can do that with a 6.8. You can do it all the way up
Absolutely.
to with a 7.1. Depending on what it is. But I will tell you this: one man's medium is not another man's medium.
Oh, no.
So I see guys chiming in here and saying, "Well, I really like my, such and such rod that's a medium." Well, yeah, I can see that in that rod because it's a little bit stiffer than what another guy's medium is. So you got to be really, really careful.
It's kind of like each manufacturer defines their own powers.
Yeah, they really do. So
so one brand's medium is lighter than another brand's medium. So,
Yeah.
I mean, depending on your brand,
Right.
that can change. You know, for example, I've always noticed that that's a trait of St. Croix,
Yeah.
and that's a trait of Daiwa.
Yeah.
Daiwa
Stiffer.
and St. Croix's mediums
Totally different.
are like medium plus.
I don't agree with that.
You know, they're just stiffer.
I think St. Croix's mediums are a little bit lighter, and Daiwas are definitely heavier. Don't you?
St. Croix's medium is, in my opinion, is a stiffer medium than a lot of other rod brands.
Hmm.
So, like,
Yeah.
you know, a Shimano medium, or
I think a Loomis medium is stiffer than most of them.
yeah. And
So anyway, the point is that, you know, if you have the right medium, then you can cross it over even into some wacky rigging,
absolutely,
you know, on the right medium. So
like
you
an
know,
extra fast.
and that's what we're getting at here. We're trying to get at, you know, the guys who only want to carry 4 or 5 rods,
Versatility.
you know, can get a lot of versatility out of a rod. And but you know, but a guy like George and myself, who we have 30 rods in the boat at any one time, you know, that's different. That's different. That's a totally different thing, where you're really getting specific, and you're really looking at your tapers and actions and dialing them in. There's a lot of rods out there. You can get a lot of stuff done with one rod, you know, and that's what we're kind of trying to get at here.
Well, that's definitely one of your key rods in your arsenal.
Yeah, Nick.
So for you guys with this, and you got viewers that, you know, they're like, hey, what rod are they talking about here?
Yeah.
So for you and for George, what is your choice? What would be your personal choice?
Yeah. So, you know, the most versatile rod that I own myself in spinning is a 852 G Loomis rod. Now that's a medium, but it's a stiffer medium. You know,
It's extra fast.
It's extra fast, and it gives you a little bit more versatility. You can throw anything from a Ned rig on that thing all the way up through a wacky rig. I mean,
Drop shot.
you can do anything with that rod. The 852 is such a great rod. It's just one of those rods.
It really proves the versatility of an extra fast medium.
Yeah, and you know, so the other one would be like you know, a 7-1 St. Croix extra fast. Now I feel that's a little softer in the tip than the G Loomis, but it does a lot because of extra fast, you know, so that it's a very versatile rod. So, you know, if you had one of those, you could do a ton of stuff with it. It could be your one rod to get a lot of stuff done. You know, the nice thing about the medium heavy, if you're going to carry that other one, the nice thing about the medium heavy is it allows you to fish around cover, that heavier cover, and that cover where you have to get that fish out of, like docks and grass, better, because you have that horsepower in the tip to set the hook. Because a lot of times a fish picks it up and takes you across grass, you're not getting a clean hook set, but that tip on that medium heavy tip allows you to get the hook set properly and get them out of that cover a little bit better. So that makes an argument for a medium heavy.
Yeah, my favorite, like, go-to spinning rods, I'm right with Mike on the 852 in the Loomis line. That's the 7-1 medium extra fast. And then I'm also a medium heavy guy. And I'll use the 803 6.8 medium heavy extra fast Loomis.
Great rod.
I also really like anything 7-1 medium fast. I'm sorry, 7-foot medium fast, or 7-1 medium fast. Anything that St. Croix makes. I really like super light sensitive rods. They're Legend Elite and Legend X, and that 7-1 and 7-foot medium fast is real versatile.
Totally different than the 7-1 extra fast.
Oh, totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different.
The fast and the extra fast in St. Croix is a totally different rod.
Yeah, the fast, I think, is the 7-1 and 7-foot particularly that 7-foot medium fast, is so versatile.
It is. It's very versatile.
And those two models from Loomis, and another versatile rod that I fish a lot is a 7 medium X-Pride.
Yeah.
And that is an extremely versatile rod.
And that is an extremely versatile rod. It's a fast
those rods kind of do all this stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Really well.
And you can do it with one, or you can do it with all three of them. You know what I mean? You can have as many as you want, but you can do a lot with that one rod. You really can. You can do a ton.
And you can go to other brands. The Daiwa Tatula, the Daiwa Tatula Elite, the Daiwa Kajay. And on and on and on. If you're a lose guy, I had a guy in today who's a lose guy, and he wanted that rod. And we got the Signature Series 7.2 medium extra fast Zona rod. And he's like, this is the rod that I am looking for. And he was looking for
that thing does everything.
Well, and he was looking for a rod to do all the stuff we've been talking
Exactly.
And he looked at like 4 rods. He looked at a couple of St. Croix. He looked at a Daiwa, and then he picked up that rod. And that's it. I want that. How many more do you have in stock? I'm coming back for another one. So that's kind of an important rod in your
Josh Sawyer is asking, is there one rod, a medium that you can also throw a Ned rig with? And absolutely. All those mediums that we talked about, the G Loomis 852 is absolutely fantastic. The for everything from Ned rig to a shaky head. I mean, you can do all that stuff with it. The 7-foot medium St. Croix fast can do all that stuff with. The 7-foot medium X-Pride, you could do all that stuff with. So those rods that's how versatile they are. Ned rig to wacky. That's how much you can, everything in between. It does it well. Does it really well.
Yeah, ball head swim bait.
Yep. Ball head swim bait.
Drop shot.
Yep, absolutely.
A tube on a jig head.
Tubes, absolutely. You can throw all that. A little shaky head setup.
If you're a little old school and you like to swim a grub around, just saying, you might want to try that.
Yep. You can bust that out and throw it on there. So
yep.
that's just an exceptional rod. And like I say, you add the medium heavy in there if you find yourself tidal water fishing, fishing grass, lakes with a lot of grass in them. Then you'll want to mix that medium heavy in there.
Yeah.
To handle
drop shot and boat docks.
Yeah. To handle that little bit more.
You know, the key thing with this discussion is, we're trying to like break down maybe 5 to 6 rods that are going to be like your arsenal.
Yeah.
So, we're not really expanding out beyond that. Now there are,
specialty stuff.
There's all different kind. I mean, there's shorter, lighter, taller, heavier. We're not going to go down that path right now. That's a discussion for another day.
Absolutely.
And what's leading us into this great rod discussion is some awesome techniques and patterns and what we learned about that at the Classic.
Yeah. So what else were they doing after this? The Demiki, but go ahead.
I wanted to ask you guys something real quick. So you're talking about that Demiki deal.
Yeah.
And George, from what you say, that's first thing in the morning?
Well, that's what it was at the Classic.
Okay. And that's what I was saying at the Classic. I was down there, but I didn't get to watch like you guys did. So, they're doing that first thing in the morning. How long did that bite last for most of those guys? Was that an all-day thing?
No, the first day it was more of a long-term thing. They had cloud cover.
Mm-hmm.
But once that sun got out, those fish, those herring and those fish parted ways. And a lot of those fish went shallow. And that brought up like the second half of a lot of these top guys' game plan, which was dock fishing.
Yeah. Now
these docks are a little different. They're not like on pillars, pilings driven into the bottom of the lake. These are floating docks. And I think they have one like every 15 feet apart on the whole entire lake, rimming it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those docks, that's a highland reservoir. So the banks drop off steeply in a lot of those arms. And a lot of those docks were suspended over a lot of water. There was also some real shallow docks Jason Christie caught all his fish real shallow.
Mm.
And then, that gets into a whole nother rod. That's probably one of the most important rods in your arsenal. Because, I mean, let's face it, Jason Christie and Greg Hackney and a couple of the other finishers, high finishers.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Welcher,
Mm-hmm.
who finished in second.
Well, Welcher was second. Yeah.
Second by what, 2 ounces?
2 ounces.
Yeah, so
I mean,
those
right there.
There's 3 top 25 finishers that relied heavily on a jig. And the rod that you're going to use for a jig is one of the most important rods in your arsenal. Okay. Obviously for jig fishing, because if you got a chance to watch, the artistry of these guys presenting that jig, the skipping, the pitching, the accuracy, the presentation. So you got to get it there, and and you need a little bit of tip for that, but then you got to get them out, because what these docks are attached with in a lot of cases are cables.
Yeah.
So you got to get the fish hooked and away from the cable. And then on the fixed docks, like any dock, you got to get the fish hooked and turn his head and get him away from the piling.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to go right around that piling. So, that rod right there is going to be, and I'm just going to say, like, what I would recommend would be 7 foot, 7'1", 7'2", maybe even 7'3". I'm really comfortable in the 7 to 7'2" range. I love a 7'2". For me, it's a 7'2". For that kind of fishing, 7'2", medium heavy, extra fast, all day long. 17 to 20 pound, pretty much 20, fluoro, no braid, and skipping.
Yeah.
And the jig that they were using was real critical. We've talked about jigs, that Arky style head.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of the jigs that these top guys did, they were all Arky style heads.
Yeah.
Because Arky style heads skip so well.
We had a big run on the War Eagle jig. Like on Monday, it was like, what the heck? It's a nice jig, and we it's just not a fast mover here in the shop.
Yeah,
we had some pegfuls, and we don't have that many pegfuls anymore. Everybody, because that's what Christy was throwing, was a War Eagle.
Yeah, a lot of times when the classic winning bait becomes some kind of like world record seller for the company, this situation here, it's a good jig.
Yeah,
and
but sure there's a ton of them like it.
But every jig manufacturer, which there are oodles of them, makes a beautiful jig exactly like that.
Yeah.
We're always talking about the Greenfish Tackle, Brandon Cobb. We're always talking about the Dirty Jig, pitching jig, and on and on and on. So, those jigs are Arky style, tied skirts. So, you're not tearing your skirt off. You're not losing time rigging, fixing.
Yeah.
Most of these guys were using chunks. Because a chunk skips so well, and we've talked about that. Hackney was using a baby rage crawl, which also skips well. But that rod is so important, and that rod to your arsenal is something you're going to do a lot of things on. So you want to talk about versatility with that rod? You can spinnerbait, chatterbait, with that rod. You can fish a variety of swim baits on that rod. Swim jig on that rod. I mean, you can do everything with it. It's kind of, you can go heavier if that's your style, and that would be the same rod in a heavy. So like I use in that rod there, I use a lot of different brands, but one of my favorites is a Loomis NRX, and they make 2 of them. They make an 853 and an 854. They're called jig and worm rods. They're 7-1 medium heavy, 7-1 heavy, and then in a standard fast taper, like an 844 MBR, which is a heavy 7 fast. You can pick that up. And I mean, St. Croix, Daiwa. I mean, that's bread and butter. Every manufacturer has sweet rods like that, but you got to have that in your arsenal.
Yeah.
you know, in your 5-rod.
Yeah. No
Gotta
doubt.
have it.
No doubt. And, you know, in that situation, you know, where George, I'm like George, I like the 7.2 also, but I really like a 7-foot rod too, especially when you're doing docks. I just feel like I can skip a jig better with a 7-footer, you know, get that better little whip cast out of it with a 7-footer, especially that medium heavy fast 843, which is such a versatile rod. And that rod is, I mean, you use it for everything. Like George said, you use it for absolutely everything. So that
Swiss Army knife.
I mean, it really is. It's that rod that does it all. Like he said, I love it for spinnerbait fishing. I love it for chatterbait fishing. You know, 2 inches is a lot, but you know, when you're, you know, the 7-foot or the 7.2, if you had both of those rods, you're done. You're absolutely done. You can absolutely do anything you want, from Texas rigging and worm to skipping jigs, to pitching jigs around docks, to spinner baiting, to chatter baiting, to you know, whatever. I mean, swim jig. I mean, it's a great swim jig rod.
Oh, yeah.
So that I have a couple of them back there. You know, and like I think we do a lot in Shimano 7.2 medium heavy, you know, Adrena, Poison Adrena, or the X Pride, and then we're really big on the 843
and the heavy.
The MBR 843 is such a great versatile rod.
And the 844.
And the 844. Yep. So just make sure that you
pick
have
your poison, man. Pick your brand.
Yeah.
And your brand has that rod.
It does. And
your brand has that rod.
Just make sure you have that rod in your arsenal, because it is so versatile, and just make sure it has a nice fast taper on it. And those rods are particularly good for all those things. So there's 2 rods right there, the spinning and the casting, that you can do a ton of different things with.
Yeah, well, these guys, I mean, they made that jig work. I mean, they were skipping, you know, pitching. The swim jig really didn't play.
No.
But that, and then that drop, and then you get bit on that drop. I mean, if you saw it, it was just like, they'd skip it up in there, and you'd say, man, you ought to get bit there. Dink.
Yeah.
You know, it was so 101. That tournament was 101 jig fishing. And the thing that you have to realize about that I really think's interesting, if you were out on the lake with your buddies for the day and having fun, that jig would not have been your best choice, because you did not get a lot of bites with it. The reason that Jason Christie and Kyle Welcher,
it covered a lot of water.
The reason they put that jig in their hand was for the quality of the bite. And trust me, they went a long time between bites.
Christie said that he was catching, he would go almost an hour, and then he would catch 2 or 3, and then he would go an hour until he hit the right dock, and then he would catch 2 or 3. So it was a lot of work to do what he wanted to do, but he knew that what he said was he was getting quality bites on it, and it was what he had to do to win the tournament.
And you know, that's interesting, because if you think about your nerves,
yeah,
you know, you're not catching fish, and your brain's starting to wander this way and wander that way. It really takes nerves of steel to keep on point and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And you watch those guys, they were really, and they never second guessed what they were doing.
No, and that's the point. So
they never second guessed it. They knew what they had to do. They knew
that's a lifetime of fishing.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
very interesting how Christie
he knew
put it together even before the tournament even started. He was like, everybody's going to be fishing the dirty water. I know the dirty water is, you know, where you need to be. And he went up there and practiced, and first cast, he caught a 5-pounder, and he started to throw it was on a spinnerbait, and he started to throw it again. And he took the rod, wrapped it up, stuck it in his rod locker, and he left the area, because he knew that you could catch fish there, but you couldn't catch the fish to win there. So he knew that he needed to get to unpressured fish. So he went back down into clear water, and he worked at making that work for him. And in his mind, he just knew. He knew because he was there. Because look at the guy. He was so close. How many times?
Oh yeah.
He just was always right there. And he said he had to do something different to win this tournament. And he knew that dirty water. Yeah, you're going to catch a lot of fish up there, but you were fishing with most of the crowd.
And there's some really valuable lessons for us to learn here.
Yeah.
If you're a jig fisherman and you've been a jig fisherman your whole life, and particularly if you're a tournament fisherman, you're like, yeah, I get what he's doing. But to talk about it's one thing. To do it's another. When you're, in your club tournament or your BFL or you're fishing big league tournament, whatever, 5 bites, maybe you get 6 bites. Well, the tournament's 8 hours. So you can do the math in your head.
Yeah.
And see how many bites you're going to get. Whereas, like I said, if you're out with your buddies, wacky rig, shaky head,
you're going to get a lot of bites.
40 bites, fun day.
Yeah.
Good times. Hey, I got 15, you got 8. You
I'm all right with that.
I'm
all right with that, Nick.
In that I want to win this tournament mode, you need to get that rod. You need to get your jig rod. That's so critical. You're 7, and for me, it's that 7-1, 7-2, medium heavy to heavy, extra fast. Woo!
Absolutely.
20-pound fluoro, and let's go. We're not going to get a lot of bites, but let's go.
I know you love jig fishing.
Oh man,
and it's funny because we're always looking for something else. Fishermen are always looking for something else, but I think what we're finding out in this tournament, last year's tournaments, it's always the same players. It's the jigs, it's the jerk baits, it's the, they're just consistent big fish catching baits.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, unless you have a very unique circumstance. And let's talk about Jason Christie. So last year, he won the Sabine River tournament on a spinnerbait. Okay, now it's not very often in this modern era that a spinnerbait wins an Elite Series tournament. But he had, at the early part of the week, he had really high tides. He was way the hell up the river. And the spinnerbait on that high water is such a great, high water and tide water is low percentage water. So you need something that you can cover a lot of water with. And again, with that spinnerbait, he didn't catch a ton of fish. But that spinnerbait's like that jig. It's going to produce that bigger fish. And again, he said, I got to fish this spinnerbait. I got to make, thousands and thousands of exact pinpoint. And he was pitching it, presentations, and I'm going to get my bites. I am going to get my bites.
Yeah.
And he did. So, that is a tournament mentality kind of thing.
Yeah. So, that's the rod that you got to have is that 7.2 or 7 foot medium heavy. And then that, if you want that second one, get the heavy action in that because that covers all of those types of baits, and for most situations, we're not talking flipping and punching and stuff like that.
Hey,
but we can throw this in heavy cover.
You know what I do with my heavy all the time? I have one set up with 65 braid. And if I'm pitching and flipping thick clump grass, but I frog with mine. I mean, my jig rod is my frog rod.
Yeah, you can frog easily with that.
That's what I use. I mean, I have like my favorite jig rod. I have 2 of them, and the one has a fast taper. So the MBR 844 is a fast taper, and I love it. If I'm pitching that jig exclusively, I tend to go to the extra fast taper. I'm not lying to you. But that fast taper is also my all-time favorite frog rod, an MBR 844, 65 braid. Plus, it gives me a setup for flipping thick grass clumps. I'm amongst other things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you talk about versatility and making these 5 or 6 rods do the job of 10 or 12.
Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's your guys' next rod?
Well,
yeah.
we're gonna get there. Chris Grice has been chiming in here. Chris, how you doing, man? Appreciate your comments there. Tom Mills back in the house. How you doing, Millsy? Good to see you the other day, buddy. Jeff Gorecki, how you doing? Russell Fuller, what's up, buddy? And Scott Gaswint, how you doing, pal? Appreciate you
Thanks for
stopping.
checking in, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been talking, you know, for guys just chiming in here and getting in into the show. We're talking Bassmaster Classic techniques that were the winning techniques for the tournament, and we're adding the rod discussion into that
Rod aspect.
So we're you know, you're not just talking about rods and you're making stuff up. You're real life in the whole situation and what kind of rods you need to have in your boat to be able to fish these techniques properly. And which always, like we always say, if you can do the technique properly with the right equipment, you're going to catch more fish. And so right now we did the spinning rod and how important that is, and we got that narrowed down for you. And then we got into the jig fishing and those couple rods and how versatile they can be for so much different type of fishing.
Talk about something big.
And I'm gonna agree with George on those rods. It's the medium heavy 7-footer, the heavy 7-footer, and the 7.2. Either combination of that. You don't have to all three. You can go with one of those rods, and you can be able to do a lot with that stuff.
Let's talk about something big here.
Yeah, so there were some guys throwing some swim baits around.
I think our next rod needs to be something big.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big swim bait played. Okay, so this is a Mag Draft Freestyle.
Yep.
6-inch. By Freestyle, it's unrigged, and that would be rigged up with the way that Buddy Gross rigged up his swim bait was with an 8.0 owner flashy swimmer. And you'll see that hook is the perfect fit to the Freestyle.
Yeah.
It's got enough gap to handle the bulk of the plastic.
Yep.
It gives you the blade.
Yep. And the Freestyle is a 6-inch bait, so that 8.0 is a perfect size hook for that.
Yeah, the 8.0 is good. The belly's slotted on this. You could also drop back to a 6.0 should you want to. The other way that this bait was being rigged at this event was on a jig head. So you're going to want a jig head with enough hook. So this is a dirty jig, Matt Allen swim bait head, a Buckeye J Will head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's
the Strike King head? The Squadron, swim bait head. Pick your jig head, but make sure you get a big enough hook.
Well, they make them with those bigger hooks. It's a heavy wire hook, so you don't have to worry about straightening it out. Plus, the gap is huge on it, so it'll take up a lot of that plastic. But when you rig those up, you got to rig them up towards the top of the bait. You don't rig it right down the center of the bait. You just go a little bit more on the top side of the bait, and you'll get that more gap on that when you're rigging that.
The other thing that played was the Mag Draft. We saw Steve, I live with a jig and a swim bait Kennedy throwing the Mag Draft. We saw Buddy Gross throwing the jig head. I mean, the flashy swimmer rigged 6-inch swim bait. And, you need a little more rod for this, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go swim baiting and you're going to really take it up, then you're going to buy a specific swim bait rod for these types of baits.
What's this thing weigh?
I think they're like 2 ounces.
Or at the most, right?
At the very most.
So, I mean, it's 1.25 ounces.
Ounce and a quarter. So
you don't need a big
swim
bait rod.
You don't. And I think where I was trying to get there is if you're a swim bait guy, you're going to have a specific swim bait rod for those types of baits right there. And you're going to have a specific swim bait
That beauty
rod for the big glides. And you're going to be able to throw all your different swim baits. we're not talking about that rod, but we're talking about a rod that you have in your arsenal that you use for a lot of other stuff.
and works well for this.
Yeah. And for me, it's a little bit longer rod. It's a 7.4 heavy.
Yeah.
So the 7.4 heavy is, there again, it's a very versatile rod, but it'll throw those things fantastic. This is the Victory 7.4 heavy fast taper. It's got enough tip up at the top that it's fast enough that you can, I'll pull that down here, Nick, so you can see it. It's fast enough that you can cast those baits and even skip those baits, use it for skipping and just make those little roll casts with it and be a lot more specific with your cast. But it's also a rod that you're going to have for, your heavy flipping in grass. You're a bigger frog rod when you're doing mat fishing for frogs. This is the rod for that.
How about the old A-rig?
Alabama rig you can throw on this rod
Beautifully.
right here, very nicely. It's just a versatile rod for those up to that just about 2 ounces.
So yeah, you need a little, you need a little bit bigger rod in your arsenal. And this 7.4 heavy,
it's just such a versatile rod.
It's primo. My choice is actually my flipping stick.
Yeah.
So I flip with a 7.6 heavy.
Yeah,
just a traditional 7.6 fast taper flipping rod. There again, I got a few favorites in that arsenal. Again, I really like that Loomis FSR 904. It's not overly heavy at all, but it throws these baits really well. It throws my A-rigs really well.
Yep.
But 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, don't get too heavy, because again, this is part of that 5 or 6 rod arsenal, and we want you to have a rod that in the summer months on your grass fisheries that you can put a ounce to an ounce and a half punch rig together with.
Absolutely.
Or if you're flipping thick grass clumps, you can, 3/4 to an ounce. If you're punching mats, an ounce and a half, same rod.
Yeah.
You get your A-rig.
Yeah.
Pre-spawn, fall, winter, same rod.
Yeah.
If you start throwing this mag draft which is very addictive, by the way, same rod.
Yeah.
So I feel you got to have that big stick in your arsenal. I mean, these guys finished top 25. Steve Kennedy had a hell of a bag on day 1.
Oh, yeah.
Faltered on day 2, which cost him possibly the Classic. Had a hell of a bag. You saw Kyle Welcher. They had a beautiful camera shot of him throwing a 6-inch swim bait and a big spot coming up and eating it. For those of you who are not swim bait guys and you are looking at the swim bait aisle here at the store and you're like, man, that's a big bait. Well, they caught a pile of 2-pound spots on these swim baits here.
Oh, yeah.
A pile of them.
George caught 13-inch largemouth on the Susquehanna River
on that bait
right there.
And George, while you have those 2 baits in your hand in the tournament, was there a reason why angler picked one over the other, or was it cover they were fishing, or just preference?
There is a couple reasons for it. So the mag draft is an exposed hook. I mean, the mag draft is one of the most legendary boot foot swim baits made. And the reason they call it the mag draft is it's an exposed hook. It has a magnet in the belly and like a little molded slot there that the hook kind of lays in. And the magnet, you can see the magnet just pull it in there, right? It just pulls it right in there. So it holds it up. You can get it pretty close to cover. You can swim it through a tree without really getting into the thick part of the tree. You can swim it around a boat dock. You can skip it in a boat dock without getting up against the pilings, and you're good. But the reason for the 6-inch, what they call freestyles, or that you rig yourself, is twofold. One, with a hook like this, flashy swimmer,
Yep.
you can swim this thing in
Anything.
nasty cover. Your hook's tucked on the back. You're basically Texas rig style, weedless. The other place this baby shines is when this spawns over, particularly on reservoirs. Those fish gang up on offshore hard spots, and you can drag this thing on the bottom. And it is a deadly technique for big fish that are in schools.
Yeah.
So there's where you maybe get your preferences on rigging, from a belly weighted hook to a jig head.
Yeah.
You could also obviously do both of those in open water.
Well, this is also a great skipping way of rigging it too. You can rig it up on that, and you can skip it a lot better. I know around here they skip them up underneath the bushes in the April, Mayish type of time, and around here, Nick, and they really, we sell them like crazy to these guys who skip these things up underneath these bushes and catch giant largemouths up, and whatever else swims. But there's a lot of largemouth caught on those things, skipping them.
Yeah,
so you can skip them better in certain,
so it gives
certain
you that
setups.
Gives you that
I like that jig. I like that jig on there. I didn't even think about throwing a jig on that thing, but
yeah, that really works well.
I really like that setup. I wasn't really familiar with it until I saw those guys doing it on at the Classic.
It really works well, and we'll talk about the post spawn when we get into the post spawn time of the year.
Yeah,
we start talking about offshore.
Yeah, don't rush it.
Don't
rush it. Yeah, we didn't even get to pre-spawn yet.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
We're still winter here, man.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that for sure. So that's where that big rod comes into play.
Yeah. So now you're at the one spinning rod or the multiple spinning rods, depending on how far you want to go with it. You're at that jig rod that does everything for
Swiss Army knife.
The Swiss Army knife rod. The 7 foot 843, the 7.2 medium heavy fasts.
The big gun.
That thing works really well. And then you have that big gun that not only can you throw your heavier Texas rigs or frog and heavy matted stuff, but now you can use that rod, and you can throw your swim baits. So that's only 3 rods so far that are must-haves. That's rods that you must have in your arsenal, and you can do it with 3. So why do we carry so many? Because we don't want to retie all the time. We're not going to go out there and
plus we rig them with different line.
Yeah, rig them with different line, and we might have one with a jig on it, and we might want a Texas rig on the other one, because that rod does the same thing. So that's the reason.
That's where you get your multiples.
Yeah, and that was the really important part of this conversation I wanted to get to was and I always say it in here all the time, Nick, when people come in that are just getting into fishing, get into bass fishing. Yeah. Is you're going to end up with 5 rods. It's just going to happen. Where we're at, you're going to end up with 2 spinning rods and 3 bait casting rods. It's just what works around here. It's the arsenal. I see people that it's just where they end up. I take a lot of people fishing. That's what they bring. I look at what guys are buying over time, and they end up with those 5 rods. So that's 3 here, but we got to talk about another one yet.
Well, there's actually probably 2 more.
Yeah, there's a couple more we're going to talk about, but there's 3 that gets a lot of that hard, heavy go-to stuff taken care of. And now let's talk about the other techniques that those guys were using, George.
Well, the jerkbait played big time. Okay, so you saw Scott Martin caught a lot of fish on a jerkbait. You zoom in on it, it looked like Megabass 110. You saw several other anglers do really well on jerkbaits from the 110 size on up to bigger. So you got to kind of have a casting rod that is, a little lighter than your jig rod.
Jerkbaitable.
You need that jerkbaitable, topwaterable.
Topwater bowl.
You need that, like mid-size spinnerbait.
Yeah.
You might even throw some smaller, like maybe some smaller crankbaits on it. You might do a lot of things with it, but you got to have that, a little bit lighter, more of a medium powered rod. In a casting rod, anywhere from 6'8", that's going to, probably be in your wheelhouse, maybe as big as 7 foot. And that's an important rod.
Well, we've said it a million times on here. The greatest jerkbait rod ever built for me and George is the 6'6" medium heavy 783. It's called the MBR Action. It's a 783. It's the greatest jerkbait rod ever built.
For us.
For us. There's guys that like a softer tip. They'll go to a medium, and it's a great argument there with a softer tip. It's just the way we jerkbait fish with a medium heavy, and I like that 6'6" a little better than a 6'8". However, our good buddy Corbin, everybody knows Corbin. He's working again. He likes the 6'10". He fishes the 6'10" medium heavy in a Zodius. So,
and he also gets a little more versatility out of the 6'10" because it is. I mean, there is a big difference in size between a 6'6" and a 6'10".
Yeah.
So if you're looking for that rod that's more versatile, you're probably going to want to look 6'8", 6'10".
Yeah, but for me, I like the 6'6" medium heavy.
Absolutely.
And I throw a splash it on it. I'll fish a splash it on a topwater splash it on that same rod. It works great for those types of little smaller topwaters. It's a great rod for chucking a little walking bait, where you got that, where walking the dog. It just, I think I can walk the dog a little better with that rod. And it's just, there again, it's that rod that does a lot of different stuff in that lighter range.
Yeah. And I mean, that is a great rod for that. If you do bump up to a 6'8" or a 6'10", GDP just chimed in the 6'10" medium Zodius for him.
Yeah.
6'10" medium Zodius for Corbin. Pick your brand. I mean, I know Daiwa makes a killer 6'10" in the Kajay line. That's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah, there's a million of them out there.
St. Croix makes a beautiful 6'8" medium extra fast. That's absolutely gorgeous.
Yep.
And then of course, pick your brand. They all got a good one. But that rod's really important for your arsenal. And as we saw in the Classic, I mean, them guys threw a jerkbait hard.
Yeah.
We talked about that in our pre-Classic show, how that jerkbait was going to be a major player. And that jerkbait was a major player. And that jerkbait is also a major forward-facing sonar player, i.e. Patrick Walters.
Oh, yeah.
I want to give the guys something to think about that's way off the wall with the jerkbait rod. So if you're a boat owner, sometimes the way your boat is laid out in the front, it's also going to depend on how long of a rod that you want to use with the jerkbait.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen times where you guys using a 6'10", it's just too long for the boat setup they have, and they really should be at a 6'6". Some guys even at a 6 foot. Your boat does play a factor depending on how your boat's set.
Oh, your boat does, and then vertically challenged people,
right? Like me.
They didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, you start.
Some people don't. You
start putting, these guys are putting 3 big units on the front of the boat. You start banging casts off those screens and cracking them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting because, like, George, you have a skeeter, and the way the skeeter's laid out in the front, it's very nice because you're almost in front of the boat when you're fishing up there. Other boats are laid out to where everything's like kind of in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you go to jerkbait and you're almost breaking your rod on your trolling motor or something like that.
Well, we talk about casting angles a lot. And, one of the things I liked about the skeeter was being able to get all the ways up. I mean, my left foot is all the ways up against the front of the boat, parallel to my trolling motor. I mean, my foot pedal. And the only thing I have right there is just like a couple screens and the head of a trolling motor that I can cast over. but it gives me a whole different angle on a piece of cover.
Yeah.
And until you stand in that boat or take your boat out and stand in whatever boat you guys have, stand in the very, very front of your boat and then back up a step and see how that angle changes on shallow water cover. Open water stuff, it's not really a big deal, but on shallow water, when you're and we talk about angles on cover.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really like about being able to get all the ways up front in that boat. And that is a really awesome next level point you brought up there, cameraman Nick.
Absolutely. So the 6.6, the 6.10, that rod,
Don't forget 6.8.
And the 6.8, 6.6 to 6.10, and everything in between. That's the rod. That's the topwater rod.
You gotta have it.
Jerkbait rod. That's the rod that you can throw just a bunch of that kind of stuff on. I'll tell you another thing I like it for, George, and is that 3.8 Kitech.
Beautiful.
It just it rolls it out there nice.
Beautiful.
You can throw it real nice on a swim on a jig head and just swim that thing around. It's a really good little.
Well, and it's also great for roll casting a spinnerbait.
Yep.
A 3/8 ounce spinnerbait or a
Yeah.
1/2 ounce spinnerbait, roll casting that up on cover.
Yeah,
real
absolutely.
tight, real accurate casts. And I'll tell you what else it's really good for. If you get into a situation where you're ripping a square bill or a trap out of grass, instead of doing a crankbait rod with a moderate taper, pick that 6.8, 6.10, whatever you have as your rod we're talking about here, and put that square bill or that baby 1- or that trap on that when you're trying to pluck it clean on grass.
Yeah.
And go to that little bit stiffer rod.
Sure.
That's what that is all about efficiency. And it's interesting. Speaking of traps, there was actually a competitor in the Classic, Brock Mosley, who did his damage on a Bill Lewis rattle trap.
Yeah, I saw that.
Old school chrome and blue Bill Lewis rattle trap and a chatterbait.
I don't know why that thing went. That I can't believe it didn't. Like a lot more guys didn't do that.
Well, and he was able to yo-yo it, and he was also able to wind it.
Yeah, so when they were schooling, you could wind it through the schools,
or you could wind it on.
I just for some reason I think it would be a great bait for forward-facing sonar. If they were aggressive. Well, there's one. Just you can cover the depth range real easy. I
know we've had some interesting times with yo-yo and a trap on forward-facing sonar.
Yeah,
frustrating because they wouldn't eat the damn thing.
Yeah,
man, you'd see 5 or 6 of them just playing yo-yo,
ball up on that thing. It was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, so that rod, Mike, is critical. And then it's real easy to roll into the next rod. And let's talk about that by talking about that clear water on Lake Hartwell and the fact that red crankbaits played in that clear water. One of the top fishermen in that tournament, Nick LeBrun, who's a Louisiana angler. He played a Bill Lewis MR6 shallow running red crankbait. And Stetson Blaylock, who had a 20-pound plus bag on day 3, he caught a couple key fish in the clearest part of the lake on a red crankbait.
There you go.
Now this is straight up
not a dirty water thing.
No, and this is straight up cranking. And in your arsenal, you do need a crankbait rod. It can be glass, it can be graphite.
Yeah.
But you do need a crankbait rod, and you have to be really careful when you buy it because Mike's going to tell you a little bit about the bend on those things and why it's important. But I'm going to tell you this: where you live and how you fish is going to be really critical on which rod you buy. So what I mean by that is think about the depths of waters that you generally try to crank, which will define the size of the bait you're generally trying to throw. If you are, and for lack of a better term, if you're 3/4 of an ounce crank and under, then pretty much any, medium moderate glass or medium heavy moderate graphite's going to work. If you're a deep water cranker, you may want 2 crankbait rods. You may want that all-around crankbait rod, and then you may want the big gun. Well, tell us about the bend, Mike, and why that bend's important.
Yeah, I think George is right there. You know, for me, where we're at and what we do, I don't find myself throwing those big, heavy crankbaits. So I always, you know, but I do throw 12-foot divers and under.
Right.
You know, that's where that's where I'm at for what the type of fishing that I'm doing.
Sometimes I got to go big.
And then there's the argument of glass to graphite, you know, and certain things we like glass for, and certain things we like graphite. But if you're just want to crankbait, you know, I think the important thing is to get a rod that you can fish up to 12 foot, because that's what a lot of times that's what you're going to be doing. You know, it just, let's just face it, you know, around here, there's not a whole bunch of guys out there chucking, you know, 20-foot divers. It's just not happening too much. I mean, yeah, you can catch fish on it, but there's just not a lot of guys. It's kind of a specialty thing. So we're not going to get into the specialty part. I like the 7. I like glass. I do the S glass in a lot of different rods. There's a million of them out there now, but I use the 7.2 medium moderate for a lot of my stuff. Square bills, DT4s, DT6s, DT10s, the new DT8 is going to be great on it. All the way up to a DT10. I just love it on this rod.
5XD.
5XDs is great. You can go into a 5XD on this rod. It'll throw it great. But the tapers that you're looking for with a crankbait rod is a moderate taper. So now you're not, let's see if I can shoot this. Now you're not extra fast. Okay. You're not fast, but now you're getting into the middle part of the rod. And you want that middle part of the rod to have some flex. And you can kind of see where it's flexing all the way back to my hand. If I do this right, it kind of flexes all the way back to my hand there. And that is for treble hooks. You know, that allows you to throw a rattle trap, throw a crankbait with treble hooks on the end of a long cast, set the hook, and get that fish all the way in, even if he only has a little small portion of your of the hook in the fish. And it's changed my fishing, that moderate taper, when it comes to treble hooks. And I think George is right. This is one where you got to have in your arsenal, no questions asked, whether you go with a more slower S glass or a glass rod, or if you go with some kind of a graphite or composite that's out there now that will you know, give you a little bit different feel. You know, it's a good argument.
It is a good argument.
Graphite argument and a S class argument is there. I will tell you
There's
that
no right answer.
when I'm fishing some sparse grass, I don't like the S glass. It doesn't do me any good. It loads up too much on the grass. I can't clean my bait off. I like the graphite, medium heavy graphite crankbait rod. I can snap it, clean my crankbait off a little bit better. But if I was going to pick one, I just want that nice moderate taper. It's going to change your crankbait. And I know guys have medium action graphite rods, fast taper graphite rods, or they're just trying to make do with a graphite rod, because we hear it in here all the time. But a fast taper or extra fast taper, you're just losing way too many fish. You're going to land more fish with a proper crankbait rod than you will with a rod you're trying to make work for a crankbait rod.
You gotta have a crankbait rod in your arsenal. It's probably not the first rod you're going to buy as you're building that arsenal, but you will have one.
Yeah,
it's critical.
Absolutely. Joseph, glad you stopped in. Hey, better late than never, brother.
Yeah, true that.
Ken, how you doing? Glad you're stopping in, brother. Everybody stopping in late. This is Tackle Shop Live. We are talking rods to go along with the classic patterns and to kind of fill your arsenal out, because we get that question all the time. What do I throw on what rod? You know, I'm buying these rods. I need to know what I'm throwing. So me and George are breaking this down. The other thing about this show is it goes on a podcast, Nick.
Right.
And you know, a lot of this information is coming at you real fast. You can replay it. You can rewatch it. And if you don't want to look at me and George, you know, you can go to our podcast site.
Listen. While you're
You
driving.
can go to iHeart. You can put in your tackle shop, the tackle shop, on Spotify or iHeart or any of those favorite streaming sites, and you'll pull our podcast up. You can listen to some of the stuff that we said on our drive. So that's always available also for you.
So, guys, talking about these rods. So, Mike, if you could rehash the 5 or 6 rods you just picked out.
Yeah.
I think we started with what, a spinning?
Yeah. Yeah. So the argument there was, if you were going to have one spinning rod, was to go with that medium 7 foot 1 inch, 6'8" to 7 foot 1 inch medium action that does a little bit of everything. It's a rod, like I say, the 852 G Loomis rod for me, that does everything from a Ned rig all the way up through to a wacky rig, and everything in between. Those rods will do a great job for you. Ned rig, all that kind of stuff. That's a very, very versatile rod. And then we went to the jig rod, and the jig rod, again, the versatility of a 7.2 medium heavy or a 7 foot medium heavy is going to be a very versatile rod. But there again, in the spinning, you can mix it up and go to a little bit of medium heavy. And in this instance, you can mix it up and go to a heavy, and you're going to cover all the jig fishing, the chatterbait fishing.
Yeah, the chatterbait.
The swim jig, Texas rigging, not in real heavy cover, but Texas rigs. And then, of course, you got to have a big hammer dog that you can throw swim baits on. We like a 7.4 to a 7.6, 7.7, heavy action, fast taper, to be able to punch, to be able to frog in heavy cover, and to be able to throw the mid-size or the smaller to mid-size swim baits.
1.25 ounce,
and
2 ounce.
Then the last rod,
A rig.
the A rig, cover all that kind of stuff. And then the last rod that we talked about here is the treble hook rod, which is a crankbait rod that you can get.
And also the medium power.
Oh, the jerkbait rod.
The medium power multi-purpose 6.6 to 6.10 medium power to medium heavy power.
Yep.
Multi-purpose.
So is that 5?
So that's the 5. So here's where I'm going with this. And one thing that's so great about this tackle shop and your guys is that you really gear towards everybody. And you get a guy that comes in here and he wants to pick out these 5 rods. Which rods would you say, hey, do not skimp on these rods for this setup? Or which rod can you go, hey, you know what? You can go with this.
Oh, yeah. And we do that all the time in here.
There's 2 of them you don't want to skimp on.
Well, what's the statement? You got to feel them to reel them.
Right.
Okay.
The 2 rods that you do not want to skimp on, by the most sensitivity your wallet will bear, is your spinning rod and your, what we're going to call a jig rod.
Yeah.
Those 2. Your crankbait rod, you can buy great crankbait rods for under 100 on up. You can buy great flipping sticks for under 100 on up. And you can save money in those areas to accommodate your budget. But your spinning rod and your jig rod, which is, those things are doing many things for you. You want to go and buy your sensitivity there. And that doesn't mean that you can't buy a $100 rod in that avenue, but do what you can bear. Go as high as you can bear.
Exactly. And we do it all the time in here. We tell guys, what's the favorite thing you really like to do? Find out what that favorite thing is that you really like to do and that you feel comfortable with, and find out what rod you're fishing with now, and see if we can help you out with something that's a little bit better in that, to make it, your fishing a little bit better. A couple questions here. Robert Brett's and a couple other guys were asking about light rods. Well, I guess in this conversation, we're just trying to get rounded out type of rods. And as soon as you start talking about light action, medium light, then the specialization comes in. This is where now you get the sixth rod. Now you get the 7th rod. Now you get the 8th rod. Now you get all the way up to whatever you get into. You know, your lighter actions, your medium lights, your longer, softer rods for drop shotting and deep clear water and some of the Great Lakes stuff, you know, where you're light line and small hooks and big fish.
When I go up north,
Yeah.
I on my last trip up on the Thousand Islands, I had a 6.8 medium light X Pride in my hand for 3 straight days. And it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
I was drop shotting with, you know, light line,
Real light line,
and small
hooks. Yep.
And open water and
Yep.
big fish. And I do use that rod for other things, but it's not part of my core.
Right.
If we're
That's a
trying
good
to
word.
build
Core. These are core rods that we talk about today.
5-6 rod core.
Yeah.
I have it, and it's in my boat all the time. But it's not a core rod.
Right.
And
a lot of guys, you'll see a lot of guys on the circuit and the tournament guys that they'll take the core rods and they'll double it.
Yeah.
They'll just double it because they want multiple things rigged up in different, you know, in different colors or different weights, like George said, or different lines. You know, so that's where the multiple rods come into play. But, you know, specialty rods, you know, it's not really specialty, but it's like the medium light, the light action is now you're starting to specialize.
You're getting outside that core.
The 8-foot swim bait rods, that's on the other end of things where you're throwing the big pounder freaking swim baits around and some of the big glide baits and stuff. That's a specialty rod. The 10XD rod that George was saying about when you're cranking
8XDs, 10XDs.
Yeah, those big.
You need a rod for that.
You need a specialty rod for that.
That's a 2-ounce crankbait that you're trying to throw.
Yeah, exactly.
All the line off your reel with.
And that's why so many manufacturers make so many different rods, because they have a rod for every technique that's out there. And if you're a guy who really likes to chatterbait, then you may buy specific chatterbait rods.
You may like a glass chatterbait rod.
Yeah,
you may go to a heavy glass chatterbait rod, and that rod may never see anything but a chatterbait on it.
Yeah, and it may be only for a certain situation.
You know, if you occasionally throw a 8 or a 10XD, you can throw it on that rod. So, I mean, you can get other uses out of those alternate rods, but that's not really the point of this. Yeah.
This was just
this conversation.
This was just to get the core rods out there. I really like that word, George. Core rods. That was really good.
I knew you'd like that.
And you know, it was just about, you know, helping guys just try to get what the rods, because everybody has these rods, you know, to what you want to put on your rods to fish them properly. And hopefully we helped you out with that a lot. And if you have any questions, you can always stop in the shop here. You can call us. You can, you know, whatever. You can email us. You can drop us a line on the social media. We'll always get back to you, try to answer your questions more specifically. If you are looking for a specific rod, we can help you out with that. But I think we covered it pretty good, Nick. I think we got that pretty well.
The core.
You guys did a great job. And, you know, that is a perfect core rod.
It is, yeah.
And, you know, every angler, whether you're on the circuit, pro tour, they all have the core rods. Right, George?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think at this point we want to talk about some tackle, and we're going to move into a little segment. You're done with tournament talk, George?
Yeah, I think just to quickly recap, I think we saw one of the things that really stood out to me was the power of that wacky rig.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talk about techniques every week. We're going to.
Were they all wacky in with rings, George?
Yeah. So the G-Man was wacky in a Zoom fluke stick with a crossover ring.
Yeah.
So that he could rig it Nico style.
Yeah.
Brandon Card was using an O-ring and a split shot, drop shot hook. Little number one
Yeah.
So you saw different hooks.
Yeah.
From Nico to like finesse wide gap to split shot, drop shot. Scott Martin was using the little weedless wacky TK97 from Trocar.
A bad little boy right there.
It is, man. It is. It is.
Hey, even this little sucker right here. even this little thing right here, this little bitty split shot drop shot hook.
I love that hook.
I mean, we were catching, I mean, 6-pound smallies on this little thing. I mean,
That hook's a beast. I call it the splinter.
this thing is like, are you kidding me? It's a little bitty tiny thing. And George, and that's a great point, George. This is a hook that once it gets in you, they can't use anything to throw it. It just gets in that little thing there, and they can't throw it. They try to use it for leverage. They can't. And they just, I tell you, man, you can land some gigantic freaking fish on that thing.
Yeah. And all these hooks are designed to be fished with that little bit of a lighter tackle approach.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to do a wacky show.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the kind of wacky that we talked about tonight. We're also going to talk about power wacky, flipping wacky.
Yeah. Pikalusic, flipping wacky.
Yeah.
He's a flipping wacky nutcase.
And you need,
we might even have him on the show for that.
And you need special hooks for that. So we're going to do that in that show. But I think what stood out to me from the classic recap and preparing for this rod show, that wacky rig, you get the best bass anglers in the world competing in the biggest bass tournament in the world. And the top 25, for the most part, 20 of them relied heavily on some sort of wacky.
Yeah.
You know,
everybody loves wacky style.
You may want to put that one in the hat. Pre-classic show, we talked. The show was kind of catered around underspin.
Yeah.
And we said the underspin was going to be a major player. Well, it kind of wasn't.
Was you missed that one?
Well, not really. I had one angler who thrived. One of my top 10 anglers thrived on the underspin with a Super Fluke Junior. On that morning deep hole bite, that morning trough bite. So that stood out to me. Of course, the jig.
Yeah, jig.
You know, the jig, and we talked about that concept of knowing that it's truly a quality versus quantity. And you know, we can't talk enough about jigs.
Yeah.
Of course, the swim bait, the fact that they're on a spotted bass lake and they're fishing 6-inch swim baits.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's kind of a wrap on that. And we, you know,
great tournament, great
concept. I love the
classic.
concept of the rod talk and blending it with this. I think it really clarified. But you know, I got some toys I got to talk about, man.
It's time to talk tackle,
dude.
This is Tackle Shop Live. So, of course, we have to talk once again about our favorite thing, and that is fishing tackle and new products.
Yeah.
And
I got something so specific here.
This thing's crazy.
And so cool.
What is this thing?
This is the Jackal Bounty Fish. And I'm sure that's some sort of translation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a hybrid fluke style bait with some very interesting design features. I'm going to break this down to you bullet point style. Okay, speed round. Floating material.
Yep.
Okay, floating material. B, the
huge ribs
are forward facing. Okay.
Water displacement.
Well, and also designed that when you twitch this bait, it doesn't travel a long way. So this is a walk the dog, weedless style, walk the dog bait that's designed to fish in heavy cover and keep it in that fish's face. It has a reinforced mesh, so you're not tearing your tails off. It has a hook slot, and you can rig it with your favorite EWG style hook. You know, I would recommend it's
gonna take a big one.
5.0 super line.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna fish this on some heavier rod.
Uh-huh.
And I would also recommend, because it's a floating plastic, I'd recommend putting a nail weight in there to get it to sink a little bit. And then you're going to get a walk the dog action. So it's kind of like walk the dog / swim bait hybrid, megalodon fluke. I mean, whatever you want to call this thing. It's just, this is for going out and whacking some hogs.
Oh yeah.
Bounty fish 158. So
multiple colors.
I thought that was pretty freaking cool.
Comes in multiple couple colors, not a lot.
The problem is this thing came out last year. And of course, we all remember how good it was trying to get tackle last year. And we got a giant shipment of them in. I mean, like crazy. And sold them all out in like 4 days. And then it took forever to get them back in. So we kind of,
momentum stopped.
We kind of put the web page on sleep mode. And now we're all loaded back up again. So bounty fish, you know, specialty trick bait. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we got some of these.
Wrong button.
I'm not talking Girl Scout cookies. So, you know, every month Mega Bass does the special colors, the special runs. They call it the Respect Series. I don't know. Special. So this month there's 2 of them in the 110. Why is there 3 boxes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So first we have the GG Moss Ore.
GG.
Wait. Let me get my names right here.
Wow. It's kind of got an orange belly on it, but real light orange.
Kind of a special.
That's like a, you know what that is? Like a Ito Tennessee shad with an orangish belly.
Sort
of.
And then we have
olive.
This bait's actually available here in the 110 Junior. This is called the Spawn Cherry.
Ooh.
If you're into your cool colors. And then we have another color that is kind of like a Japan color. And it's
got a little chartreuse belly on this one.
Cyber Illusion. So it's kind of a clearish.
So what do you got 3 of them for?
There's 3 different ones.
You said there was only 2.
2 specials and a this is like what they call like a Japan color.
Oh, a freak series?
No, it's not something that's generally available in the US. It's got a little pink tail on it and clear. It's got some like Cyber Illusion to it.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. It's kind of like if you look at the top of that thing.
So they just came in.
If you look at the top
some of those
and you turn it, see how the whole thing kind of gets clear and then it, boop, there it is.
And if you're a Mega Bass junkie, like we tend to be, this is just fun.
That's fun.
This is just fun. We get these in every so often, and pretty cool. So I got that going for me. Tomorrow, if I can get to it, I'm going to be dropping some Vanford 3000s on the site. They're back there in my piles of product. I'm going to try to get them unpacked and loaded up tomorrow. We have 2500s, but now we have 3000s. And then don't forget, for next weekend, we will have that full line of Shimano hard baits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And some new Jackal releases, which we're not going to tell you about just yet.
Yep, we got some of that. And it's not up yet, but for all you guys who were driving us completely crazy, there's a whole line of Nico Helgermites. Get your Helgermite on. I had to do that because George and I were been killing ourselves trying to get Helgermites in here, fighting each other back and forth.
Well, we've always had them, but not like that.
Yeah, we got an excellent selection of them in here now.
So yeah, that's what I got for you.
So guys, last week you guys talked about the X Pride, and
Yeah.
we posted some good stuff. They were going out the door like crazy,
flying out the door. There's still some X Prides left.
X-Prides.
We got a few left in here. So if you guys are X Pride junkies, make sure you go to the website and get them here real quick. Oh, an announcement. We were having some problems with our connection to our website, so that's going to be fixed hopefully tonight. So inventory should adjust and show you exactly what we have on hand with those rods, because it is showing a couple, because the thing crashed on us yesterday. So it's showing a couple that aren't in stock, but that should be fixed tonight, hopefully.
I love technology.
Yeah. So that should update everything and give you the correct inventory online. Still got a nice selection of the Nomad here. It's been flying out of here. The Nomad is a great line of baits. So we did some social media on those too.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot coming out, because when something new comes out, and a lot of their stuff is something we didn't see before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got to be able to see what it looks like in the water.
Yeah.
And we're going to be putting some of that out there this week.
Yep.
So check that out. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some new hats in. Back in stock. The favorite camo SFT hat is back in stock. The hats are coming in slowly, but they're coming. They're starting to come in. And then last week we got the black with the leather patch, which is a famous hat too. So we got the two hot hats in. We got some other stuff coming in also. The SFT hat that I'm wearing, that's going to be in here in a couple weeks. And
There you have it.
Yeah. What else is new, George? Anything?
No, we can't let it all out at once, Mike.
Yep.
We'll break the internet.
Now listen, Cabin Fever next weekend. I'm telling you, this is going to be a huge sale. It's going to be a giant sale in here. We got tons of tackle. The seminars are going to be off the charts. Tell your buddies about them. If anybody is interested in snakehead fishing or musky fishing, we're adding that in there. I mean, those are two things that are taking off for us. We've been selling a ton of that stuff, and guys are really getting interested in it. Pass the word along. And then for us smallmouth and largemouth junkies, we have those great seminars with Corbin Gottwalt and Alex Davis. So that's next week. And until then, Nick, are you all right? You got everything? Got anything?
Oh no, I'm ready.
Nick, right after the show last week, this is funny. We were wrapping up the show and we were cleaning everything up, and Nick says, "I think I'm going to go to the Classic." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I think I got to work tomorrow, and after work, I'm going to jump my truck and drive down to the Classic."
And I can even make this story crazier. So gas prices are going up to the roof.
Yeah,
right?
crazy.
So there was a guy at work that was selling a cheap car, and if you want to know, so Friday I buy this car after work. A lot of miles on it. I thought, you know what? There's no better way to break it in than drive it all the way to the Bassmaster Classic.
Is that what you took down there?
All right. So I left at 6:30 in the afternoon. I drive down. I got there about 9 in the morning. I get to the expo, and I didn't really have anything in mind.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to do some stuff for the shop and everything. And there's Greg, the Palma, and he looks at me and he looks away, and then he looks back at me. He's like, "What the heck are you doing here?" Right. Well, then we had a great time. We did a lot of stuff. And then Sunday, all right, now all of a sudden this idea of driving down there is starting to go, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Because I got to leave Sunday at 5:30 because I got to be at work at 7 in the morning. So I drive straight through. I get home around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was ready for work. So that's the story.
Yeah. You took a cat nap, and then you got up and had to be at work at 6.
Yeah. It's just the way it was. But you got to do what you got to do. That's the place to be.
Super road warrior stuff right there, Nick. That's
I love it.
Not me, babe. I'm over them days.
It was fun.
Me and George will still be.
And the car didn't break down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The car didn't break down, and I was thinking to myself, if this car breaks down, I'm going to hear so much flack over this. But we're good.
Well, I'm glad you went.
All right.
You had a great time down there, and that was cool. I wish I would have been there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping in. And until next time, we'll catch you on the next Tackle Shop Live.
Yeah.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You